A State Tax Guide. Chapter 1. A State Tax Guide. Provincial/state advantages for border residents. If you live near the border in a province or state fairly close to another province or state, check to see what kinds of sales taxes, gas prices, beer prices, etc. they have over there. Then depending on what you find out, do some of your shopping there. You can even buy cell phone coverage in another state, get a bank account, etc. if it's cheaper over there. If you live near a provincial/state border and state income tax is high, establish residency in the state across the way. If state sales tax is high, order large ticket items through mail order from another state, thereby eliminating your state sales tax. This generally only provides you with a saving if you buy an expensive item, over $100, or you if you get free delivery without having to pay delivery charges for whatever it is you're buying, which some companies offer as an incentive. State Income Tax Guide. Some states have income taxes, others don't. If you're a business owner, you will probably have to pay some kind of tax, even if it's just collecting state sales taxes and passing it on to the government. The no-tax states are Alaska, Florida, Nevada, South Dakota, Texas, Washington, and Wyoming. Florida has no income tax but a wealth tax of 1% on incomes over $20,000. Florida also has an intangibles tax on the value of your stocks and bonds. New Hampshire and Tennessee don't tax work income but taxes money earned through investments. Low-tax states are Illinois and Pennsylvania. Before you move, check to see what taxes the state collects to compensate for the absence of the state income tax, or maybe it's just a wealthy state. A federal law has stopped states from charging taxes on the pensions of people who earn their income in another state. Your best bet to cut state taxes is to move to a state without state taxes. To do this, you have to show proof of domicile by buying a home in the state, selling your home in the other state, showing a paper trail by joining the library, chamber of commerce, etc., changing your voter registration, getting a hunting license, etc. taxadmin.org/fta/link/forms. State Sales Tax Info. Some low sales tax states are Alabama, Delaware, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, New Mexico, and North Dakota. California has a state income tax of 11%, Hawaii, 10%, Montana, 11% and North Dakota, 12%. Alaska, Delaware, Montana, New Hampshire, and Oregon have no state sales tax. sso.org/fta/link. taxadmin.org/fta/link/forms. taxinfocenter.com/state-sales-tax. mysalestax.com/services, covers some states. theistc.com/ratecalc.stm, calculate sales tax rates for states. avoidsalestax.com, sales use tax audit help California. danmartinez.com/services, Texas state sales and use tax audit defense and sales tax refunds. dmainc.com/services/state_income_tax, Ducharme, Macmillan and Associates, Inc. legaudit.state.ar.us/audit reports. nga.org/106 Congress/Salestax. peisnerjohnson.com, a nationwide state sales tax consulting firm. salestaxexact.com, state sales tax and use tax software, Georgia. salestaxresource.com, multi-state sales and use tax issues. tax.aic.org/resources/state+sign and +sign+use+sign tax+sign reverse+sign audits.htm. texassalestaxaudit.com. theistc.com/ratecalc. toolkit.cch.com/p07_4500.asp. towanassociates.com/ourauditgroup.html, state and local tax consultants. State, percent rate. Alabama, 4. Arizona, 5. California, 7. Colorado, 3. Connecticut, 8. DC, 6. Florida, 6. Georgia, 4. Hawaii, 4. Idaho, 5. Illinois, 6.25. Indiana, 5. Iowa, 4. Kansas, 6.25. Kentucky, 5. Louisiana, 4. Maine, 5. Maryland, 5. Massachusetts, 5. Michigan, 4. Minnesota, 6. Mississippi, 6. Missouri, 4.225. Nebraska, 6. Nevada, 6. New Jersey, 6. New Mexico, 4.75. New York, 4 to 8.25. North Carolina, 5. North Dakota, 6.5 to 7.5. Ohio, 5. Oklahoma, 4. Pennsylvania, 6. Rhode Island, 6. South Carolina, 5. South Dakota, 4. Tennessee, 5.5. Texas, 6. Utah, 6.25. Vermont, 4. Virginia, 4. Washington, 6.5. West Virginia, 6. Wisconsin, 5. Wyoming, 3. State tax websites. taxsites.com/state-forms.html, links to tax forms for all 50 states. taxsites.com, federal, state and local taxes. mtc.gov, Multi-State Tax Commission, links to all state tax depths. retirementliving.com/rltaxes.html, taxes by state. retirementliving.com/rlstate3.html. sba.gov/busadv/frame.cfm, list of state tax offices. cch.com, 800-835-5224, info and book about state taxes. best.com/tilde/ftmx/tax sites/state law.html, state tax law in the US. sba.gov/starting/index startup, list of state tax offices. taxadmin.org, click link for links to state tax forms. vertexinc.com/resource center/tax links/links.asp. taxadmin.org/fta/rate/tax_stru.html, state tax laws. revenue.state.ak.us. ark.org/dfa/taxes/index.html, Arkansas. ftb.cagov/forms/index.htm, California. state.co.us/gov_dir/revenue_dir/forms_download.html, Colorado. dms.state.fl.us/dor/forms, Florida, Florida Department of Revenue, tax forms. state.id.us/tax/forms.htm, Idaho. state.ky.us/agencies/revenue/tax forms.htm, Kentucky. state.me.us/revenue/forms/homepage.htm, Maine. mel.lib.mi.us/michigan/midaxforms.html, Michigan. taxes.state.mn.us, Minnesota. nol.org/home/ndr/tax/forms.htm, Nebraska. state.nh.us/revenue/forms/tax-forms.htm, New Hampshire. state.nd.us/tax-dpt/forms/forms.htm, North Dakota. state.oh.us/tax/tabforms.htm, Ohio. dor.state.or.us/forms.html, Oregon. state.sd.us/state/executive/revenue/forms.htm, South Dakota. dor.wa.gov, Washington. state.wv.us/taxrev/forms.html, West Virginia. dor.state.wi.us/html/formpub.html, Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Department of Revenue, collection of various. Chapter 2. State Tax Departments. State Tax Departments. Contact the following agencies for forms and information about state taxes. If writing, preface your letter with Department of Revenue, Taxation Office. Alabama. Alabama Department of Revenue. 50 N. Ripley. Montgomery, Alabama 36132-7123. 334-242-1170. Adair.state.al.us. Alaska. Alaska Department of Revenue. 333 West Willoughby Avenue. POB 110420. Juneau, Alaska 99811-0420. 907-465-2320. Fax 907-465-2375. Revenue.state.ak.us. tax.state.ak.us. Arizona. Department of Revenue. POB 29079. Phoenix, Arizona 85038-9079. 602-542-4542. Fax 602-542-3258. Revenue.state.az.us. Arkansas. Department of Finance and Administration. POB 1272. Number GB, Ledbetter Building. Little Rock, Arkansas 72203-0919. 501-682-7020. Fax 501-682-4574. accessarkansas.org/dfal. California. Franchise Tax Board. POB 942840. Sacramento, CA 9425-7-0600. 800-852-5711. ftb.ca.gov. boe.ca.gov/sutax/staxmanuals.htm. ca.gov/taxrep. caltax.org, California Tax Online. Colorado. Department of Revenue. Taxpayer Service Center. 1375 Sherman St. Denver, Colorado 80261. 303-866-3091. Revenue.state.co.us. Connecticut. Department of Revenue Services. Taxpayer Services Division. 25 Sigourney Street. Hartford, Connecticut 06106. 860-297-5962. Fax 860-297-5698. state.ct.us/drs. Delaware. Department of Finance. Division of Revenue. Carville State Office Building. 820 French St. Wilmington, Delaware 19801. 302-577-8205. Fax 302-577-8202. state.de.us/revenue. District of Columbia. Office of Tax and Revenue. Customer Service Center. 941 Capital St.ne, First floor. Washington, D.C. 20002. 202-727-4829. cfo.dc.gov/etsc/main.shdm. Florida. Department of Revenue. Tallahassee Service Center. 2410 Allen Road. Tallahassee, Florida 32312-2603. 850-488-6800. dms.state.fl.us/dor. myflorida.com/dor/taxes. Georgia. Georgia Department of Revenue. 1800 Century Center Boulevard NE. Atlanta, Georgia 30335-3205. 404-417-2400. State.ga.us/departments/DOR. Hawaii. Department of Taxation. POG 259. Honolulu, Hawaii 96809-0259. 808-587-4242. Fax 808-587-1488. State.hi.us/tax/tax.html. Idaho. State Tax Commission. Department of Revenue and Taxation. POB 36. Boise, ID 83772-0410. 208-334-7500. State.id.us/tax. tax.idaho.gov. Illinois. Illinois Department of Revenue. Income Tax Division. 101 W. Jefferson St. Springfield, Illinois 62702. 217-782-3336. Revenue.state.il.us. Illinois Department of Revenue. Income Tax Division. 100 West Randolph. Chicago, Illinois 60601-3274. Revenue.state.il.us. Indiana. Department of Revenue. 100 N. Senate Ave. Indianapolis, Indiana 46204-2253. 317-615-2662. ai.org/dor/index.html. Iowa. Iowa Department of Revenue. Taxpayer Services. POG 10457. Des Moines, Iowa 50306-0457. 515-281-3114. Fax 515-242-6487. State.ia.us/government/drf/index.html. Kansas. Kansas Department of Revenue. Docking State Office Building. 915 S.W. Harrison St. Topeka, Kansas 66625-0001. 785-368-8222. Fax 785-291-3614. ksrevenue.org. Kentucky. Commonwealth of Kentucky. Revenue Cabinet. Income Tax Section. 200 Fair Oaks Lane. Frankfort, Kentucky 40620. 502-564-4581. kydirect.net. Louisiana. Department of Revenue and Taxation. 330 Ardenwood Drive. POG 201. Baton Rouge, Louisiana 70821-0201. 225-922-0690. rev.state.la.us. Maine. Maine Revenue Services. 24 State House Station. Augusta, Maine 04333-0024. 207-287-2076. Fax 207-624-9694. State.me.us/revenue/homepage.htm. Maryland. Controller of Maryland. 80 Calvert St. Annapolis, Maryland 21401. 401-260-7300. comp.state.md.us. Massachusetts. Department of Revenue. Customer Service Bureau. 200 Arlington St. Chelsea, Massachusetts 02204. 617-887-6367. 800-392-6089. dor.state.ma.us. Michigan. Michigan Department of Treasury. Bureau of Collections. Treasury Building. Lansing, Michigan 48922. 517-373-8030. trees.state.mi.us. Minnesota. Minnesota Department of Revenue. 10 River Park Plaza. St. Paul, MN 55146. 612-296-0555. taxes.state.mn.us. Mississippi. Mississippi State Tax Commission. Income and Franch Tax Division. epub 1033. Jackson, Mississippi 39125. 601-359-1141. msdc.state.ms.us. Missouri. Missouri Department of Revenue. Income Tax Bureau. epub 700. Jefferson City, MO 65105-0700. 314-751-4541. dor.state.mo.us. Montana. Department of Revenue. Income and Miscellaneous Tax Division. epub 5835. Helena, Montana 59620-2701. 406-444-3388. Fax 406-444-1505. state.mt.us/revenues/css/default.asp. Nebraska. Department of Revenue. epub 94818. Lincoln, Nebraska 68509-4818. 402-471-2971. Fax 402-471-5608. revenue.state.ne.us/index.html. Nevada. Department of Taxation. Capitol Complex. Carson City, NV 897-10-0003. 702-687-4892. Fax 702-687-5981. tax.state.nv.us. New Hampshire. Department of Revenue. Administration. 61s. Spring St. epub 457. Concord, New Hampshire 03302-0637. 603-271-2186. Fax 603-271-2355. webster.state.nh.us/revenue. New Jersey. Department of Treasury. Division of Taxation. 50 Barrack Street. CN 269. Trenton, New Jersey 08646. 609-292-5994. state.nj.us/treasury/revenue. New Mexico. Taxation and Revenue Department. epub 630. Santa Fe, New Mexico 85709-0630. 505-827-0700. Fax 505-827-0469. state.nm.us/tax. New York. State Department of Taxation and Finance. Technical Service Bureau. Building 9, Room 104, State Campus. Albany, New York 12227. 518-457-6139. Fax 518-457-2486. tax.state.ny.us. North Carolina. Department of Revenue. epub 25000. Raleigh, North Carolina 27640. 919-733-3166. dor.state.nc.us/dor. North Dakota. State Tax Department. 600 E. Boulevard Ave. Bismarck, North Dakota 58505. 701-224-29 2045. Fax, 800-472-2110. state.nd.us/tax-dpt. Ohio. Secretary of State. Income Tax Division. 30 E. Broad Street. 14th floor. Columbus, Ohio 43266-0418. 614-846-6712. state.oh.us/tax. Oklahoma. Oklahoma Tax Commission. 2501 Lincoln Boulevard. Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73194. 405-521-1350. oktx.state.ok.us. Oregon. Department of Revenue. 955 Center st.ne. Salem, Oregon 97310. 503-378-3725. dor.state.or.us. Pennsylvania. Department of Revenue. Bureau of Taxes. POB 8911. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania 17127. 717-783-6035. revenue.state.pa.us. Rhode Island. Department of Administration. Division of Taxation. 289 Promenade Street. Providence, Rhode Island 02908. 401-277-2905. Fax, 401-277-6006. tax.state.ri.us. South Carolina. South Carolina Tax Commission. POB 125. Columbia, South Carolina 29214. 803-737-5000. Fax, 803-737-9881. sctax.org. South Dakota. Department of Revenue. 700 Governors Drive. Pierre, South Dakota 57501-2276. 605-773-5141. Fax, 605-773-5129. state.sd.us/state/executive/revenue/revenue.html. Tennessee. Tennessee Department of Revenue. Andrew Jackson Office Building. 500 D. Edrick Street. Nashville, Tennessee 37242-1099. 615-741-3133. Fax, 615-741-0682. state.tn.us/revenue. Texas. Office of the Controller. 111 West 6th Street. Austin, Texas 78701. 512-463-4142. state.tx.us/taxinfo. state.tx.us/taxinfo/tax forms. Utah. Utah State Tax Commission. 160 E.300 S. POB 4000. Salt Lake City, Utah 84134. 801-530-4848. tax.ex.state.ut.us. Vermont. Department of Taxes. Agency of Administration. Pavilion Office Building. Montpelier, Vermont 05602. 802-828-2551. state.vt.us/tax. Virginia. Department of Taxation. POB 6. Richmond, Virginia 23282. Fax, 804-367-2062. tax.state.va.us. Washington. State Department of Revenue. General Administration Building. AX02. Olympia, Washington 98504-0090. 206-753-5540. dor.wa.gov/upgrade.asp. West Virginia. West Virginia Tax Department. Taxpayer Service Division. P.O.Drawer 3784. Charleston, West Virginia 25337-3784. 800-642-9016. Fax 304-558-2501. State.wv.us/taxrev. Wisconsin. Department of Revenue. POB 8906. Madison, Wisconsin 53708. 608-266-2776. dor.state.wi.us. Wyoming. Department of Revenue. Hirschler Building. 122W.25th Street. Cheyenne, Wyoming 82002. 307-777-5235. Revenue.state.wy.us.